Good morning. The Committee on Parole is called back to order. The time is 9:20. The committee members today are Ms. Pearl Wise, Mr. Pete Freeman. My name is Tony Marabella. I'll be chairing. Our remote location is at Tangipahoa Parish with the staff members. Are there any staff members there with you?
Yes, sir.
Are they inside or?
Yeah.
Would the staff please introduce themselves?
Deputy James Brosey. Last name spelling Brossett.
Thank you very much, Deputy. Mr. Collier,
Yes, sir.
give me your full name and DOC number.
Ernest Collier, 400-180.
Mr. Collier, this is a revocation hearing. Let me explain our procedure to you. We're going to cover your parole revocation questionnaire. Do you have that with you?
No, I don't have it with me, sir.
Okay, we'll be able to put it up on the board and we'll go over it in just a moment. Then I'm going to read the allegations against you, how you violated your parole. I'll ask you to plead either guilty, not guilty, guilty with a statement, or not guilty with the statement. Then we'll have a full discussion about the allegations. Do you understand our procedure?
Yes, yes, sir.
Can we put his
I think so. I think it's still on.
Mr. Collier, can you see that?
Yes,
Do you recognize that document? Is that your signature at the bottom of the page?
yes, yes, sir.
And that was signed on November the 30th of 2022.
Yes, sir.
Are all of those answers still accurate and correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about number one. You indicated that you have been treated for mental illness in the past 5 years, or you are currently taking medication for a mental disorder. Which is it, or both? Have you been treated for a mental illness in the last 5 years?
Yes.
Do you know what that mental illness is?
It was depression, anxiety, hallucinations, auditory hallucinations, not being able to sleep.
Did you get a diagnosis?
Yes.
What did they diagnose you with?
What I just named the
Depression and, okay. Are you currently taking medication?
no,
Do you have a lawyer, sir?
no, I choose to be here myself, represent myself. No, sir.
You feel confident to represent yourself? You want to move forward today with this hearing?
Yes, sir.
Okay, does your depression or any of the illnesses that you've been treated for, your ability to think or reason or
No.
understand what you're doing?
No, sir.
Okay, I'm going to read the allegations against you. Number two, you failed to report to your parole officer since June of 2022. How do you plead to that?
Not guilty.
Right? You moved without permission of your parole officer on or about September 21 of 2022. How do you plead to that?
Not guilty.
You failed to refrain from association with persons involved in the illegal possession, sale, and distribution of marijuana, as evidenced by your own admission to the use of marijuana on November the 30th of 2022. How do you plead to that?
Not guilty.
And you failed to provide your parole officer with verification of your employment. How do you plead to that?
Not guilty.
You absconded from the supervision of your parole officer in September of 22 Your whereabouts remained unknown until your arrest by the Hammond City Police Department on November the 28th of 2022. How do you plead to that?
Not guilty.
And you failed to pay supervision fees since 2015, resulting in arrearages and a balance of $7,365. How do you plead to that?
Plead guilty.
Case has been assigned to me, Mr. Collier, so I'll begin our questions. You indicated that you denied that you failed to report to your parole officer since June of 2022. Did you report to your parole officer in July of 2022?
My parole officer had changed without my knowledge. My parole officer was James Swallow. I think that's his name, but without me knowing, my parole officer changed the Mike to Michael. Can't think of his last name at this point. But me and my previous parole officer, we always talk on chat online. You know, he was doing it because of COVID. We always talked over the phone. When I didn't know who to get in touch with at the time. I did not know that Mike was my parole officer that I had to get in touch with.
Did you call anybody to try to find out?
Usually, James would call me.
It's your obligation and responsibility to get in touch with him.
Yes, sir.
Anybody after June of 2022, when he didn't call you back, did you try to figure out who your probation officer, your parole officer was, how to get in contact with him? What efforts did you make to do that?
I didn't make any effort because I didn't know. I didn't make any effort though, and I take responsibility for that.
So you failed to report to your parole officer after June of 2022.
Okay.
All right. You moved without permission of your parole officer on or before September the 21st of 2022. Where did you live before September the 21st of 2022?
Well, we was still, after Hurricane Ida, a tree had fell in our house, so we was waiting on FEMA. We was living in a motel at
And
that
did
time.
you contact your parole
And
officer?
I had, at
to
the time,
tell the parole officer where you were living?
I contacted James Swallow and I told him where I was at. However, you know, things hadn't changed and we had to move. And during that time, I didn't get a chance to report. And James was no longer my parole officer, me not knowing. I still didn't get a chance to report until November.
So you did not report your move?
Yes.
You failed to refrain from association with persons involved in the illegal possession of marijuana. Did you admit that you used marijuana on November the 30th?
I admitted to using CBD. I told them that I buy it from it illegal without the THC, and they never drug tested me. He asked me, you know, did I smoke? I said I smoked the CBD that they sell in the stores legally in Louisiana. That kind of hemp marijuana. He never drug tested me, so you know he left it like that.
That you smoked marijuana on November the 30th of 2022.
Not the marijuana with the THC, the legalized version with that don't have the THC in.
How often were you smoking that?
I only smoked that for my anxiety and depression. It was mostly for medical use. It didn't have THC.
You had a prescription for medical marijuana?
No, I just thought it was okay because they sold it in the stores.
What's your past drug history?
I smoked marijuana in the past years ago.
Would you go to jail?
I never did no other drugs though. I never did no other drugs in my past.
You absconded supervision in September of 22 and were arrested by the Hammond police on November the 28th. Your whereabouts were unknown. Why'd you get arrested?
I got stopped for traffic. My tag was expired on the back of my truck. And the police stopped me and was notifying me that my tag, and then he found out that I had this parole hold.
Okay, where were you going in your truck?
Well, I was coming from getting it fixed. I was on my way back home from getting it fixed because my tail lights was not working properly, and I had a leak in my motor, my oil leak in my motor.
Were
I
you
had got
working
it
anywhere?
fixed. Sir?
Were you working anywhere?
Well, I was working, but I ended up, being relieved because of my situation, my mental situation.
What is your mental situation?
I hear things. I was kind of depressed. I was just, I had a newborn baby, and I was going through some changes. And we were still in the motel at the time, and it was a lot of stress on me trying to, to get away from being treated mentally to try to help get in a stable environment.
What kind of job did you have?
Well, I like cooking, so I was cooking.
Where at?
I was a prep cook at Santa Fe.
Santa Fe restaurant?
Yes, sir. But I didn't last about 6-7 weeks.
So you were there for 6 or 7 weeks.
Yes.
Why didn't you notify your parole officer where you were working?
At that time,
that was your responsibility?
I knew it was my responsibility, sir, but at the time I had so much on my plate. I was really going through some changes. I was trying to get stable. I was really trying to get stable enough to when I notified him that I felt confident about my situation, but I never made it to that level.
Mr. Collier, when you're on parole, you don't get to choose the rules. The rules are very clear. It's your responsibility and your obligation. You don't get to decide, oh, well, when I feel better, I'm going to call somebody. You got an obligation to report. You pled not guilty to all of these things, and after I talk to you, you're guilty of every one of them.
Well, I pled not guilty. I wanted to say with a statement. I forgot that you said that I could plead not guilty with a statement.
And you pled guilty to not having not paying the money. Let me ask you this. When you first got arrested, you went before your parole officer and he suggested you go into work release for 6 months. And you said, nah, I'm not interested in that. Why?
Because, sir, I was working on the streets and.
Well, you just told me you didn't have a job. You just told me because of your mental condition, you got laid off from Santa Fe. You wasn't working. You were waiting to get a job to notify your parole officer. Now, so what's the real?
I had got laid off like a week before I got arrested. I was working all the way up, but in that same week I got arrested. Everything happened just quick.
You got laid off because you got arrested.
No, I was laid off like a week or something before I got arrested. I didn't tell him that basically being smart with him. I was just wanting to be in a more independent state because for so long being on that medicine, I didn't feel independent. I kept feeling trapped, and I tried to explain that to him. I say, it's not what you think it is.
When was the last time you went to a mental health counselor?
Well, it was, I'm gonna say a good 7 months ago, when I had probably longer than that, when we went to going through what we was going through, having to go to the motel. I had to start working. They was trying to help me.
Did they prescribe any kind of medication?
They prescribed some, I call them lilies. I forgot the name of, but I call them some lilies. They helped me with the hallucinations and the sleep disorder.
You indicated on your document you don't take any medication.
Why
didn't you continue to take that medication?
Because I couldn't. I started working. I started trying to work to help my family get out of the motel. Because FEMA was taking so long.
Why did you quit taking the medication?
Because I couldn't work on them. It made me sleep. It made me, it made me kind of feel lazy.
Did you go back to the doctor and suggest that to him and try to get some different medication?
they only, I did a couple times and they like, there's decreased it from 25 milligrams to 15 milligrams to 10 milligrams. That was their form of trying to alter the medication.
Okay. Any questions?
I do have a question. Now answer that again about why you refused the TWP that your probation officer offered. You really didn't answer that.
I refused it because I have a baby at home, and I told him that it wasn't that I didn't want to take what he was saying. It was that I wanted to be more independent. I wanted to be with my child because I didn't, I have 2 other kids that's grown that I missed, saying them growing up due to the reason why I'm on parole right now, because I've done time. I've done 16 years in prison. And that was like, I got home in 2012. My children were 19 years old when they was 2 and 3 years old when I first went to prison. But now I don't want to experience that with the child that I have now. I wanted to be there.
Okay, I get it now. Did you state to your parole officer that you felt like if you come before the parole board, you would get a more lenient outcome?
I never said anything like that, ma'am. We never had a discussion to where it would lead me to say anything of that magnitude.
What was your expectation when you refused the transitional work and you come before the parole board? What would you like how would you like for me to vote for you?
I felt like the parole board would be by being 3 different people because I'm dealing with 1 parole officer. I feel like the parole board would be more reasonable in looking at the situation even deeper. Because
what do you hope would happen today?
Ma'am, to tell you the truth,
Please tell me the truth.
I didn't really know what was going to happen. All I wanted someone to hear me out. I couldn't tell you or dictate what the board would do.
I'm not asking you to dictate. I just wanted to know your hope. That's all. So tell me this. If you are released today, where would you go live and how would you support yourself?
Well, I'm going to work. I'm going back to, I like to cook. So I want to go, that's my trade. That's what I want to.
Not answering the question, dancing around. Like if you got released from jail and you walked out, where would you be going to stay?
Oh, I'm going home. I have
Where's that? Where's home?
44057 Hood Road, Hammond, Louisiana. My mom.
Your mom's house. She got a house now.
My mom is dead, but she left me that house. It's paid for. So
you weren't staying in it before. You were staying in a hotel. So what's the difference?
My sister was staying there before. My sister's no longer there.
Okay. Okay. And how would you pay the light?
Just only me and my sister.
Okay. How would you pay the light bills there?
Get a job.
You don't have a job. You have to get a job.
Well, I have kin people that work.
That's a yes or no question. Do you have a job when you walk out of jail if you got out today?
Yes, I have a job, ma'am.
Where is this employment?
It would be at Dunn Seafood.
Okay. That's all I had, Chairman.
Mr. Collier, you've been before the parole board before, since you've been on parole.
Years ago, yes, sir.
And you were sent in lieu of revocation to the transitional work group. You got kicked out.
No,
what?
I completed it.
Honesty is your best policy. Well, tell me you didn't get kicked out. I'm looking at the records.
Sir, could I speak? Could I?
Go ahead, dig your hole.
I got the records, if you look at the records clearly, I went to Hunt's on a aggravated work offense. The aggravated work offense wasn't how do you put it? Well, I wasn't convicted. I was found not guilty of it, and I was sent to LaFouche Parish Work Release Center, and I completed it in LaFouche Parish Work Release Center.
What was the allegation of the aggravated work offense?
I don't quite remember. It wasn't nothing, I guess, some about me not working or showing up on time or something like that, but it wasn't something that was true. And I was found not guilty on it when I went to Hunts.
Anything else you'd like to say before the board votes?
No, sir.
Mr. Collier, you know, it was recommended that you do work release. You didn't want to do that. It's also been recommended that you complete the Steve Hall program in lieu of revocation. And based upon everything that I've heard and I've seen today, I find that you are guilty of failing to report to your parole officer, that you're guilty of moving without permission, without telling your probation officer. You failed to provide your probation officer with verification of your employment, and you absconded from supervision of your parole officer until you were arrested by the Hammond police. My vote today in lieu of revocation is to follow the recommendation, and that is that you enroll in and complete the Steve Hoyle program. That's my vote. I'm only one. So, Ms. Wise?
Mr. Collier, you didn't have to be here. You had an option and you didn't have to be here. For me, I find you guilty of all the allegations, and my vote is to revoke your supervision and impose the original sentence.
Thank you. Mr. Freeman?
Mr. Collier, would you go to that substance abuse and try to finish it? That's what my order is.
Yes, sir.
Okay, because I'm gonna go along with this Marabella in lieu of revocation, send you to Steve Hall. But remember, you know, your chances are running low. Okay?
Okay.
Mr. Collier, you have 2 votes to, in lieu of revocation, to send you to the Steve Hall program. You've got to complete that program. If you don't complete that program, look, you're done. You understand that?
Yes, yes, sir. Do I,
Whether you want to admit it or not, you've got a substance abuse problem. Steve Hoyle also will assist you with your mental health issues. So there are 2 things that you can get out of that program. So I encourage you to really pay attention. And if you complete that program successfully, you'll be put back out on parole. You'll be back with your family. That program is about 9 months, but you got to work to do it. You can probably finish it sooner if you work harder, but that's up to you.
I don't get credit for some time, sir. I've been in here 60 days.
Credit for all of that time you've been in there.
You'll get your credit. The Department of Corrections will give you credit for whatever time you deserve. That's not for me to figure. Good luck to you, sir.
All right.
All right, please introduce yourself, state your name and DOC number for the record.
How you doing? My name is Jirrico McKee. 365054 is my DOC number.
All right. Jirrico, this is, I'm Brennan Kelsey. The only reason Mr. Knotts and Ms. Jackson will be your parole panel. We'll ask you some questions. You can respond. At the end, you can make a statement. We'll take a vote. You understand the process?
Yes, sir.
And we do have some people here that'll be, some people that are here in support and opposition, and they'll speak at the appropriate time. Rashandra Preston, Tamisa Preston, Lynn Campbell will speak, Michael Knopfler will speak, Michelle Smith will speak, Latoya Green, Alyssa Scott, Melvina Roundtree, and Avis Scott. And then we have Ms. Baton will speak at the appropriate time.
Yes, sir.
Jirrico McKee, DOC number 365054, second class offender, parole eligibility date 5/4/2023, good time date 10/2/2052, full term date 4/6/2054, 53-year sentence, 6 months. armed robbery, habitual offender, attempted simple burglary, a simple robbery, illegal possession of stolen things. Does that sound correct?
Yes, sir.
It would answer Ms. Renata's questions, please.
Good morning, Mr. McKee.
Good morning.
Mr. McKee, how old are you, sir?
I'm 44,
How long have you been in jail?
21 years this March.
21 years with a 53.5 year sentence.
Yes, ma'am.
That's- And you have your crimes occurred in 2 different jurisdictions. Is that
Yes,
correct?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So let's talk about the crime. Tell us about what you did. I understand that all this happened in the course of one day. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
So what happened? What'd you do?
Well, I fell on hard financial times and I decided to rob a bank. And I needed a car to rob the bank. So it initially wasn't the plan, wasn't supposed to be an armed robbery of a vehicle. I spoke with someone who's supposed to be an accomplice, and I instructed him to steal a car. When I went to his house to meet him, he didn't have the car stolen, so I was determined to get the bank robbed. So I set about getting a car, procuring a car on my own. My girlfriend was supposed to drop me off at his house. I stopped her from leaving out of the parking lot. I got back in the car with her. My friend lived on South Walker, which is right around the corner from North Little John, which is the place where the crime took place. I instructed my girlfriend to make a few blocks, and we made it to Miss Mayton's street. At the time when we made it to a street, I saw a vehicle about to turn on North Little John. So I got out of the car and I told my girlfriend to make a few blocks, and I ran across the street and I hid on the side of a car. As I did that, Miss Mayton's car was turning into her driveway. As she turned into the driveway, I ran up on her as she was getting out of the car. I had a gun pointing in her direction, and I told her, "I'm sorry, ma'am, I have to do this to you, but I need the keys to your car." And she dropped the keys initially out of fright. She dropped the keys, and I told her to pick the keys up. So I instructed her to put the ignition key in her hand and give me the keys, which she did. She asked me, could she get her purse from the car? I told her to get the purse out of her car. She got her purse and took off running, and I jumped in the car and I left and went to my girlfriend's house.
And then you ended up in East Feliciana Parish.
Ma'am?
Then you ended up in East Feliciana Parish.
Yes, ma'am. That night, this all occurred at nighttime, probably around 11:30, 12 o'clock. I can't recall the exact time. But after that crime, I went to my girlfriend's house and we spent the night there until early in the morning. And the plan was to rob the bank that morning. I had another accomplice, and he and I spent the night at my girlfriend's house. That morning, we drove to the bank, which was in East Feliciana Parish, and we parked the getaway car, drove to the bank in another car, and my accomplice, he went inside of the bank. The plan was for him to go inside the bank and cause a ruckus, and I would follow behind and I would rob the bank. But he went into the bank and got into an altercation with the security guard. I was hiding inside of the car. And when I didn't get the signal that I was supposed to get, I got out of the car. I went to the door and I saw chaos going on. So I just went back and got in the car. I was about to leave, but my accomplice ran out of the bank, got in the car, and then we left out. We eventually wrecked the vehicle, and then we got apprehended by, the police later.
What do you think the victim of the carjacking, what do you think the impact was on that lady?
Sure, devastation, anger, outrage, and I'm pretty certain that she's probably still dealing with the repercussions of that. I recall when I was a young kid, my mom got robbed. She used to work at a convenience store, and I remember how that impacted me as a kid. From that point, when my mom got robbed, I was always terrified for her to leave the house.
So what made you decide, taking all that into consideration, I mean, it's confusing and concerning, really, why you chose to rob a bank. You planned it. You set out to rob a bank.
Yes, ma'am. I
Even
did.
though
And
what impact that had on your mother.
I know it's terrible, but the only thing I can say, ma'am, is that I had been completely seduced by crime. I was completely seduced by the false promises of crime at the time. I was a young man, and I made some very terrible decisions. I
Okay, well,
believe,
let's talk a little bit more about your criminal history. Although we said earlier, I believe you said you were a second felony offender. When you look at the record, I mean, technically, maybe you're a second offender, but I think the record shows that you're possibly a fourth offender. You have a juvenile record. Let's talk about that.
okay,
What was your age at your first arrest?
I was 13 years old.
What was that crime?
That was second-degree murder.
Who was
I
that?
was
with?
adjudicated of
What
second.
happened? there? Just a couple of sentences. I don't need all the details. Just tell us what happened.
Well, there was a childish altercation that escalated, and when it escalated, unfortunately at that time I had access to a gun, and I went home and I retrieved the gun. I knew where my stepfather's gun was at. I went home and retrieved a gun, and at that time, the person dying, I was 13-year-old kid. The person dying was not even a thought in my mind. You know,
So how old was that victim? How old?
ma'am,
How
I
old
didn't
was he?
he was 15 years old. And when I came back, in my mind at the time, this was what was going to happen. I was going to come back, defend myself, and I was going to shoot him or whatever. And then afterwards, we'd go back to playing basketball. Obviously, that didn't happen. When I went back home and I told my mother what happened, the very first time that even the possibility that he would die came into my mind is when we were walking back to the scene of crime. My mom said, "I hope that boy doesn't die." And that was the very first time that even became a possibility for me.
Okay, so let's talk. So you went to court, you were sent to the juvenile correctional center for youth.
Yes, ma'am, L.T.I.
Yeah, and then you were supposed to be there till your sentence was to your 21st birthday, but you were released on to your parents after a period of time, and then you were returned. And it looks to me like there was another arrest when you were 17 for negligent homicide. What was that?
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Well, one day I cut school with a group of friends. Me and 4 friends cut school to go to an apartment that I used to live in. We cut school. We were smoking marijuana, listening to music, and I went to use the restroom. At that time, I was completely involved in crime. I want to say this. Can I backtrack? I'll backtrack just a little bit. When I went to L.T.I, that was my introduction into criminality. I know it sounds like I'm putting the horse before the cart there, but that was my introduction into criminality. Before L.T.I, I was a normal kid. I just had been involved in a very unfortunate event. When I went to L.T.I, I internalized a lot of criminal values, and I actually aspired to be a criminal. So when I came out of L.T.I, I was living a criminal lifestyle, and this was a part of that criminal lifestyle. I was at home smoking weed. I used to carry guns because I was selling drugs at the time. And my friends and I had developed this practice of playing with guns and pointing them at each other when we got high. It's all fun and kicks and laughs. So I had my gun. My friend had his gun. I went to the restroom. And when I came out, he had his gun pointing at me. He was laughing. So I picked up my gun. Everybody's in there laughing. We're all high, having fun. And I made a jerking motion at him, and a gun went off. At the time, I didn't know it was my gun. I dropped to the floor. I covered my head, and I looked at the back wall. I was looking for a bullet hole because I didn't feel any recoil from the gun that I had in my hand. I didn't see any hole in the back wall behind me. So when I turned around, I saw my friend laying with a gunshot wound on the side of his head. I immediately grabbed the phone. I called 911, and I told them, the dispatcher, that some kids were playing with a gun at 8723 GSRI. Could they send help?
So it was originally
And
an aggravated battery, but then he later died. So that's how it became negligent homicide.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you've been in jail, and then we have the bank, the armed robbery.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
you jail 21 years then. And I've read your record. Your record is pretty extensive. You do still have a lot of opposition to any consideration for early release at this time for you.
Yes, ma'am.
We'll hear about that, some of that later. Tell us what has happened briefly. What was your breakthrough in prison? I've read about your success with college and your 4.0 score. I've read about the STRIVE program, your associate's degree in theology, and so on and so forth. What was your breakthrough?
Well, if you're asking if it was an event, it wasn't. It was for me, my transition occurred because I do a lot of reading. I'm thankful to have a mother who hammered in me since I was a young kid to educate yourself. And I came to prison with a love of reading. And that was my transition into becoming a better person. I read a lot of ideas. I read a lot of positive books, a lot of different ideas that you come in contact with reading books, and they can't help but have an impact on the way you view life and the way you view the world. As I told you, when I went to L.T.I, I internalized a lot of value, a lot of negative values. Reading a lot of different books helped me overcome, not just overcome, but to, conquer those values. You know, they helped me internalize, exchange those for positive values. I was talking to a gentleman here, Mr. Stelly, and he asked me a similar question. What was my breakthrough? And I had to tell him the same thing, that it wasn't just a moment. It wasn't just an event. It was, you know, just a gradual progression, you know,
Okay,
from years of reading and education.
Gotta move on. So it's through your reading that you determined that you needed to change your life. When I look at your record, it seems that happened to you. The change in your record, at least, is reflected starting about 2013. Would you agree?
Roughly, you could say that. Yes, ma'am.
About 10 years ago,
Yes, ma'am.
11 years ago. I notice your last write-up was in December of 13, but I believe you just got a reprimand. I don't see the report, but the penalty was minor. Tell us about what STRIVE is.
STRIVE. Well, it's the Warden's program here. It's a program where a lot of offenders, it rewards rehabilitation. Offenders participate in rehabilitative programs. A very effective program that Warden Myers has implemented at the institution. I was very proud when he chose me to speak to Inside Out on behalf of the program, because I see what it's doing. It stands for success through rehabilitation, integrity, virtue, and education. I think that Warden Myers chose me to represent the program because he sees all those values in me.
So what have you done to address, you mentioned drugging and all that. What have you done since you've been incarcerated to address substance abuse issues?
Well, I believe that, and I think this is probably refuted, but that once you're an addict, you're always an addict. So I am a reentry instructor here, and a part of teaching reentry, we teach substance abuse. I've joined the Living in Balance program to take a program to address my addictions, my prior addictions. And I also help teach others how to overcome their addictions through my job as a reentry instructor. But I want to say this too, real quick. I want to say that prior to participating in any programming, I recognized that I had a problem. I recognized that I need to change. You know, I absolutely hate drugs. Drugs took my dad for 20 years. Drugs were the cause of the disintegration of my family. I hate what drugs do to individuals, families, and communities. You know, so as I said, I know that once an addict, always be an addict, but I know also that I have to remain vigilant about drugs for the rest of my life.
What other community service do you do?
What other community service? Well, I started a club here. It seems like maybe if you don't know the context about it, may seem like an easy thing, but starting a club here is very difficult. It took us 2 years to start as a club here, is a public speaking and mentorship club called Made Men. And I started that, and I'm very proud of that because a lot of the good that comes about because of this club. I also mentor as a part of my job and reentry. I mentor many other offenders here, young offenders mostly. And, you know, I just share my life with other people. I share my life and my transformation, you know. That's
I don't have any other questions for Meyer. Is there anything you can add to all the things that he said?
I'm sorry for being so wordy.
Well, Ms. Renata, I mean, it's, he has a very good conduct history, taking numerous classes. He does tutor here. He helps others, obviously I didn't know a lot of the things that you brought up. I don't have the access to that, and that's, disappointing to me to hear some of those things, and I'm sorry for those crimes and the victims in those crimes, but I'm not here to speak on that. I'm just here to speak on what he's done while he's been with me, and what he's done while he's been with me has been very productive, very productive. He does good here. He's an editor in my offender newsletter. He does a lot of positive things. He's very respected and well-mannered here. I think he's made a change in his life. I think he's a different person. I really do. Considering all the things past.
Thank you. I didn't ask you, Mr. McKee, what would be your transition plan?
My transition plan? Well, I have 2 jobs waiting for me, one for Reliable PLC and one for Lone Wolf Carriers. That will be my immediate employment, but I intend to find employment closer to my major, which is communication for Ashland University. That's actually what I want to do. I would like to continue to do exactly what I'm doing here, which is
Where would you live? Where would you live?
I live with my mother in Marrero, Louisiana.
When
My
did you
mother-
first learn to be parole eligible?
When did I first become parole eligible?
You first learned you were parole eligible.
When Act 122 passed, I think in 2021.
Have no other questions?
Ms. Renata, I'm sorry, one more thing. He is currently enrolled in phase 1 of living in balance, so I do want to add that. I want to complete both phases of that.
All right, now we'll hear from Ms. Lynn Campbell.
Hi, can we have Mr. Mike to speak first?
Yeah, Michael Knocklin can speak, sure. Can't hear you, you're on mute.
Okay, you can hear me now?
Can?
Okay, thank you very much. I met Jirrico in 2014 at RLCC. I don't recall when our son Daniel met him, but they're friends and they served together in Made Men Gavel Club. What Jirrico didn't tell you is what the acronym Made Men stands for, and I think that's very important. It's an acronym that means making a difference every day, making education necessary. And while it is similar to the Toastmasters Club, it goes a lot further than what they do. So Jirrico was president of the club at that time. Through his work in the club, Jirrico has had a very positive impact as a mentor and role model for fellow club members, especially for my son Daniel. Jirrico has what appears to be a very natural speaking and writing talent. So for those who wanted to learn and apply themselves, Jirrico was able to mentor and coach the members in the club to help them develop their writing skills. He helped them to develop ideas for speeches, improve sentence structure, use correct punctuation, improve their spelling. In short, he helped them master all the components needed to improve their sentences and turn them into coherent paragraphs. And those paragraphs turned into stories. Once the members developed those skills, he was able to help them learn to deliver their speeches and even to help them learn to speak extemporaneously, which is a pretty hard concept, I believe. All of Jirrico's positive attitudes helped him to mentor. Helped those he mentored to develop confidence in themselves. To be successful, confidence is necessary to help us set and achieve goals in life. Those in the club who succeeded in learning these skills of writing and speaking and putting those skills to practice now have a golden opportunity to reach out to others and help them accomplish the same goals. As I mentioned earlier, our son Daniel was one of those who Jirrico mentored. Daniel transformed from someone with low self-esteem and low self-confidence in writing and speaking, it is now able to win competitions for his speeches. Daniel was inspired by Jirrico and now wants to go to college. For all those changes in our son, I will be forever grateful to Jirrico mentoring Daniel. In summary, Jirrico McKee has been able to help transform lives through his selfless, tireless, and dedication to helping others. And hopefully, I pray that he will be granted parole so that he will have the same opportunity to continue his work outside of RLCC, because transforming lives is how we can have the greatest impact on our world. Thank you for this opportunity for speaking on Jirrico's behalf.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, Ms. Lynn, we'll hear from Ms. Lynn now. Yeah.
Okay, can Mashelle Smith speak? I want to speak last. If
Well,
it's
okay, I went wrong order. Michelle, that's right. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Mashelle Smith. A little background information on me. I am a registered social worker here in Louisiana. I'm also a former deputy at St. Charles Parish Sheriff's Office. I currently work as a therapist at River Place Behavioral Health Hospital. I have about 15 years of mental health experience. I am the first cousin to Jirrico, and I'm here to speak in support of him. Throughout the years, Jirrico and I have remained in contact with each other, whether it's me seeing him multiple times through visitation, speaking to him over the phone, and also keeping in touch with him through email with JPay. I followed his journey while he's been incarcerated. And what he has done since being incarcerated has been very inspiring. He was enthusiastic about getting his GED and also furthering himself by taking the opportunity to get into Ashland University and just going as far as being a valedictorian. His determination and motivation he had that kept him going and wanting himself to do good, wanting others to see the good in him has been inspiring. I've been able to see him flourish into a great person. He's been a spiritual advisor while becoming a mentor to many people, including myself. I believe that is what made him want to have such a great program like Made Man. He wanted to encourage and help others to make a difference in their lives and also to further their education. Throughout conversations that he and I have had, it was exciting to see the person he had become, him taking accountability for the things that he has done and spoke positively into the things he wished to accomplish. He would motivate me at times when I felt that things were hard or getting tough and inspire me to keep pushing. There have been many therapeutic sessions that we've had with each other where he was able to identify his struggles, his interests, his strengths, and his goals. Even I know that he stated that he wanted to pursue something within communication, but he's so good at public speaking and even talking about as far as nonprofit organizations where he's able to mentor, motivate, and inspire and guide adolescents to transition into young men and women with purpose to obtain a higher education. It was great seeing the progress that he has made within himself and the impact he has had on others. Jirrico has a great support system. He has a great family unit that consists of his mother, his brother, his stepfather, and he has many family and friends who love him and going to encourage him, keep motivating him while he encourages us as well. He is not able to change the past, but he is able to make a significant difference in the future, and not just for his future, but the future of many young men and women. He'll be coming home to a brighter and promising future, surrounded by many people who has encouraged and who has prayed for him, and he has prayed for them as well. And he is coming home to a family of a lot of love people that loves him, and he loves them in return. And that's,
All right. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
thank you.
All right. Now we got it covered. Ms. Lynn, let us wrap it up.
Hi, I'm Jirrico McKee's mother. I just want to give you a little background drop. Over the years of Jirrico being incarcerated, I am the really one who has seen the sadness, the sorrow, and the remorse I watched him over the years. I know what my son went through mentally and physically. We cannot change the past, but I do want to let y'all know that Jirrico has changed. He has done so many things in his tenure in prison to make himself better. He's always had the niche of being able to reach others when others could not be reached. He has that ability. He went to college, he graduated. You guys know that history already. But the one thing that I do want to bring out was the moment I knew my son had changed was when he told me, Mom, I can't be a part of something that does not stand for integrity. At that time, I broke down. When my son told me that, I knew then in that moment, he was changed. In that very moment, he was changed. So I prayed and I asked the Lord to help him forgive himself, and that, he can help go out and reach others. His passion is to try to reach the young generation that is so self-destructing. And he wants to do more to give back to the community and try to help. For his, I know that he's deeply, deeply remorseful for the all of the things choices that he made that wasn't in good standings. So I'm asking the board today to please have mercy and consider allow my son to come home. He's missed out on a lot. His baby brother went to college and graduated from a 4-year university because of my son, of his oldest brother. He graduated in criminal justice because he wanted to do something to help give back. So I know that, everything happens for the good. So I know that he's going to be a very productive. I have set up how he's going to be living with me. He's coming home to a loving family. He has a stepdad that's ready to help embrace him and to help him get along the way. He has job lined up. I have set up a banking account for him to help him get started when he get out.
Yes.
So everything is set up for him.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your comment. Now we're here for Miss Lisa Mayton.
Yes, sir.
I can hear you. Go ahead. Go ahead and make your statement, Miss Lisa.
Okay, I just want to say that I'm still scared for my life. Even though it's been 20-some years, whatever. Everywhere I go, I have to have somebody with me because I'm scared. I'm scared. I just don't know. I'm scared.
Yes, ma'am. All right. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for your comment.
Okay.
All right, Jirrico, would you like to make a statement on your behalf?
Yes, sir, I would. I would just like to say this, and I'll be brief. I know that Miss Maiden is here, and this has been quite a long time in coming. I've played over this over and over in my mind before for many years, and I understand that she is very fearful. I understand the devastation that I've caused her life, and I want to apologize for all of the trauma and devastation that I have caused to Miss Maiden. I know that my apology is an inadequate compensation for everything that you have been through for your life. And oh yes, I know that that everything that I've put her through, my apology is completely inadequate compensation for that. And I would just hope that one day that I will be given the opportunity to make amends for that. That's all, sir.
All right, thank you. Now prepare to vote. Ms. Bernard.
All right, Mr. McKee, I enjoyed listening to you today. I appreciate that you were truthful in acknowledging your crimes. in this. We've had, you have a good institutional record, you have positive remarks by the warden, obvious community support, family support, you have a low risk score. My vote would be to grant your parole after you complete living in balance 1 and 2, with special conditions after release that you have a curfew from 9 a.m. You perform 4 hours of community service each month, working with at-risk youth, and that you have absolutely no contact with the victim or the victim's family.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Jackson.
Hi, Ms. McKee, this is a very difficult one for me. I'm going to be honest with you. I listened to everything that Renata had to say, and I do concur with those things. But I struggle with the crimes themselves and the fact that you serve less than half of your sentence. You've been responsible for 2 deaths in your life as a juvenile, basically. And I do recognize the capacity that people have to change, and I do in that process. But for me, today is not the day. I think your day will come, but for me, today is not the day. I know that you're going to continue to do things that you've been doing, because that is evidence of genuine change in how you respond to setbacks. But for me, because of victim opposition, law enforcement opposition, and insufficient counsel, I vote is to deny.
Yes,
Right.
ma'am. Thank you.
1 vote to deny and 1 vote to grant. Again, it is difficult. It's a difficult case, difficult situation. For me, work that you've done, time you put in, the things that you're doing, my vote today would be to grant your parole after you complete a living in balance 1 and 2. You have a curfew from 9 p. to 6 a. I want you to do 6 hours a month of community service, if Ms. Renata is okay with that. 6 hours a month of community service, no contact with the victim, and I want you to go to NAA 1 time a week. So you have 2 votes to
Yes, sir.
grant, 1 vote to deny. I think you qualified, your parole's been granted with the stipulations of state. Good luck to you.
Thank you all.